We're here with Craig Pastas with us, the host of the Convo Couch. Hey, Craig.
What's up, everybody? How you doing today, Jimmy?
I'm doing good. Did you know this, Craig? CNN poll, majority of Americans oppose more U.S. aid for Ukraine in war with Russia. I could have guessed that, but there are some interesting things to hear about this story. 55% of Americans, only 55.
Yeah.
That's how strong pro-war propaganda is. Because every time they turn on CNN, every time they turn on Fox News, every time they turn on MSNBC or any other channel or pick up a newspaper, it's telling them the people of Ukraine are being pummeled by Russia, and Russia's a thug and an aggressor. And we do have sympathy for the people of Ukraine, but the people of Ukraine are caught in a proxy war, and the people of Ukraine should want to end that war because it was started because Ukraine wouldn't stop bombing Russian-speaking people in the Donbass. That's what started the war. There was a peace agreement already called the Minsk Accords. Ukraine didn't abide by it. They kept killing people. So there's already a peace agreement. 45% who say Congress should authorize more funding. 51% say the U.S. has already done enough to help Ukraine, while 48% said that's because both of these groups don't have any idea what's going on in Ukraine because they've never been told what's happened. They've never been told what's going on in Ukraine. They've never been told that we started it. They've never been told that the United States overthrew a democratically elected government of Ukraine with the help of Nazis inside Ukraine, and then the people in the eastern part of Ukraine didn't want to go along with that coup government, and so the Ukraine government and the Nazis started bombing the people in the eastern part of Ukraine and never stopped. And that's why Putin went in to stop that. So this war was started by Ukraine. And no one knows this. No one knows this. People who read the New York Times don't know this. People who read the Washington Post don't know it. People who read the Boston Globe don't know this. People who watch news on television have no idea about this. A poll conducted in the early days of the Russian invasion in late February 2022 found 62% who felt the U.S. should have been doing more. When asked specifically about how types of assistance the U.S. could provide to Ukraine, there's broader support for help with intelligence gathering and military training. So people 63% want to give them intelligence gathering, 53% want to train them, and 43% want to give them weapons. And only 17% want to send combat troops. A very slim backing for U.S. Those almost 2 out of 10 Americans want to send soldiers to Ukraine. That's strong propaganda. A majority of Americans do express concern that Russia's war in Ukraine will threaten U.S. national security. That's 56% of Americans worried that Russia's war in Ukraine will threaten U.S. security. But that's down significantly from February 2022, which 72% were worried about. Wow, well, that's good. How would the Ukraine war threaten U.S. national security unless Russia decides to launch a nuke at us because we're effing so hard with their country? A bigger worry across partisan lines in this new poll is that the war will continue without a resolution for a long time. Nearly 8 in 10 are worried about that, including 82% of Democrats and 75% of independents. And so everybody, overwhelming majorities of people, are worried that the war is going to keep going forever. Okay. Democrats, Republicans far apart on how U.S. should help Ukraine. The survey finds broad partisan and ideological divides over how much the U.S. should be doing to assist Ukraine's efforts to push back against the Russian military. Republicans say, 71% of Republicans say no more funding to Ukraine. And they've done enough. Almost 60%, 59% of Democrats, most say the opposite. 62% of Democrats favor funding, and 61% say the U.S. should even do more. Wow. So 71% of Republicans say no more money and that the U.S. has done enough to assist Ukraine. So 60% of Republicans say that we've done enough. 71% say even if we haven't done enough, that's enough. The Democrats, 62, say more funding. For a country, but they don't. Are they for funding America? Are these Democrats for funding America? Have you looked outside your window? Have you walked through downtown of any city in America? Are you guys for funding America maybe instead of this? If we stop funding the Ukraine war, guess what happens? Ukraine war ends. If the United States stops funding this war, the Ukraine war ends immediately. Immediately. So when Trump said he would end the war in 24 hours, he was correct. Within both parties, there are splits by ideology. On providing additional funding, liberal Democrats are far and away the most supportive. 74% back it compared with 50. So the liberals have become warmongers. And all it took was some slick propaganda, war propaganda, like it always works. It always works. Liberals for bombing, they were for bombing Afghanistan. Liberals were for bombing Libya. Liberals were for bombing Syria. Liberals were for bombing Iraq twice. Liberals are now for bombing Ukraine or Russia. They're no longer anti-war, so they're not liberals. So that's the thing. What if you ask people what makes you a liberal? If you're pro-war, you are not a liberal. That makes you something else. That's what I was always taught, Craig. What is that? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Putin hates gays, so that's why, I mean, you can't forget that, Jimmy, That's what it is. And I mean, I think it's plain and simple right now, Jimmy. The Democratic Party is now the party of war, officially. And I don't know if you know this. I'm a newspaper guy, and I grab the newspapers whenever I travel. So I was reading this article, and I was just blown away because who's the 45% that's for this? I mean, who are they polling? I mean, this has to be a win for the warmongers. Even though the title says, people want to defund and whatnot, this has to be a win. But, Jimmy, I don't know if they don't know as much because the American people just don't care about foreign policy. And it really is a shame. It's not on their bucket list. But that's why I think it's so important. What you're talking about right now is to make sure that we always tie the funding to what's going on. Saying, hey, we can't have nice things over here because we're spending so much money over there. But like you said, people don't know or they don't care. I mean, when you were going down the graphics about what they said they should send and whatnot, I think that Americans watch too much G.I. Joe and too many movies and everything.
Yes.
They don't really grasp what's going on in war, and they honestly believe that Putin is trying to expand the Soviet Union. They're in the dark over here. They're clueless. So the only way I think that we can really start to make a dent is to go back to, it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy. We're spending too much money. Let's get out. Let's bring it back home.
So independents mostly say the United States has done enough. So the independents, 56% of independents say that we've done enough, and 55% say that's enough funding. You would think that number would be higher. Less, but that just shows you how the strength and the ubiquity of the pro-war propaganda. Less than 20% across I mean, if I believed what they said on the news, I would be for funding the war in Ukraine. But of course, I know they're lying. Less than 20% across parties back providing U.S. military forces to participate in combat. So nobody's for sending only 20% is still high. I think that's high. 20% of Americans are for sending actual U.S. troops there. Holy F. But at least the good news is most of Americans are against funding the war. They think we've done enough. That's good. Let's help get that number up. But people got to turn off their TVs, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. You talk to people who watch TV news or read regular news. It's like you're talking to a bot. It's like they can't process new information. They can't ever process new information. Like I would tell people that, like about January 6th, for instance, I was talking to my comedian friend. Then I was telling him, they had hundreds of undercover cops and FBI and Secret Service, hundreds. They had undercover FBI embedded in the Proud Boys for months. Like the number 2 guy in Proud Boys, right? So if there was going to be an insurrection, you think the FBI would know about it? Well, they did. They knew there was going to be all those protests, and so they made sure there were no cops there. There were more cops there for our Medicare for All rally of the year earlier. So and then I have to tell them yes, and then there's video of undercover FBI agents telling people to go into the Capitol. There's undercover FBI agents breaking windows, committing, and they just go. You know what my friends tell me? This is a lot to process. That's what they say. This is a lot to process. I'm like, did you know that most of the people were completely peaceful who were protesting? They were peacefully protesting, and they got pushed into going by agent provocateurs like they do all the time. I go, if you look at the video that they wouldn't want you to see, but Tucker Carlson showed it to you, that the people who got in there were mostly very respectful. Most of them were mostly very respectful. So then what they say back to me, Craig, is this is a lot of information to take in.
Did they also talk about the fact that a bunch of Second Amendment nut jobs forgot to bring their guns that day to take over the government?
And when I tell them that these people who showed up on January 6th to overthrow the government, they forgot to bring their guns. What did they think was going to happen? They're going to pick up the phone and the Pentagon was just going to start following their orders? No one thought that. This was not an insurrection. This was a protest turned into a riot by undercover agents from the FBI. That's all it was. Nobody had a gun. Yeah. Nobody had a gun. Nobody was trying to take over the government. So when I talk to my friends, they just go, oh, this is a lot to take in. Or when I tell them that they lied to you about the vaccine. They lied to you when it said it stops transmission of the virus and contraction. They lied to you when they said natural immunity was not real. They lied to you about masks. They lied to you about herd immunity. When I tell them this, they go, this is a lot to take in, Jimmy. That's what literally my friends say. Anyway, and we're going to go over it later. So I have this friend, and whatever they tell him on the news, he just believes it for real. And he believes it for real because he thinks he's owning the dumb Trumpers. He's all about COVID. My old roommate, all about COVID. And I told him, I go, Jackie, they lied to you when they said that it doesn't stop transmission. And he goes, they never said that. Have you heard people say that, Craig? That they go, they never said it stopped transmission. It was only supposed to lessen your symptoms. Have you heard people say that?
I have heard people say that.
And so now what would make someone say that? What would make someone say that is that they heard someone else say that in authority. They heard someone else say that. Keep Craig up. They heard someone else say that in authority. And then they repeated it. And who in authority told them that? Someone who had already lied about the vaccine and said it did stop transmission. And then they lied and said we never said that. So then my old roommate repeats that lie. They never said that. So I send them a video showing Fauci saying it, Bill Gates saying it, news presenters saying it, Rachel Maddow saying it, the President of the United States saying it.
Yeah.
And his response to that is, oh, it's not, oh, son of a gun, they lied to me about that. I wonder why they lied to me about that. His response was, and I'll read, quote, science is tricky. They made mistakes. They're trying to get it right. And that's just boom, boom, boom. He said they never said it. I show them videos of them all saying it. And he comes back and says, oh, it's tricky.
Yeah.
No, but even if you believe they were in good faith saying that when they said it at the time, it stops, the vaccine stops COVID. Even if you believe they were lying when they said that. But even if you believe they weren't and they were just making a mistake, well, then who lied when they said they never said that? Why would they lie and say they never? So that's a double lie. And neither of those lies anger anybody. But what does anger them is guys like me point out that they're being lied to. Because we're a nation of adult children of alcoholics.
And they know that. They know they can get us emotionally. They know they can just give us the confirmation bias. You know, we saw a lot of this with the election system where a lot of people didn't care so much about the actual process. They just cared about the results. So they would do mental gymnastics and bend over backwards to say, no, 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 no. You know, and these are the same people who were complaining that the process wasn't fair years ago. So yes, as long as they get their confirmation bias, you know, they'll move where they want to move because it's a burn against the Trumpers, and you can never go with them. You can never agree with them. You have to always push back. So then you find yourself in a position where you're actually lying to yourself.
And that's what I'm dealing with, people who are lying to themselves. By the way, but that doesn't mean that the vax is safe and effective. And even though it doesn't stop transmission, it slows the transmission and it keeps you from getting seriously ill or hospitalized or dead. That's the beauty of this vaccine. My heart swells 4 times its normal size with pride over how good this COVID-19 vaccine works. Hi, everybody. I have some great news for you. Guess what? You did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people. So if you own a business and you didn't fire anybody during COVID, the government will give you money. Did you know this? It's just true. And it's the people at covidtaxrelief.org. That's what it's all about. So you could qualify for up to $26,000 per employee through covidtaxrelief.org. This is real. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program is complicated, but nobody knows more about how to get you your dough than covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front, they do all the work, and share a percentage of the cash that they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits, churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increase in sales. This sounds crazy. This is how you know corporations run the government. They're not doing anything to help workers. I guess they're saying if you kept your people employed. So I guess you did tough thing for your employees during COVID. Let covidtaxrelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. I would take advantage of this. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org. So there's no promo Jimmy or anything? You have to select
drop
it.
Screen Jimmy.
And then do the drop screen Jimmy. Okay, go get your 26 karat grande. Come see our live shows. We're going to be in Chicago, Rosemont, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Toronto, Toledo, Detroit, St. Louis, and more. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.